Hello everyone, my name is Jonathan Kling, and today I will be talking to you about No Going Back, a review of the literature on sustaining organizational change by David Buchanan and other contributing authors. I'll begin with the starting point, I'll then move on to the nuts and bolts, I'll provide 3 big picture concepts, and I'll end with the 11 perspectives of sustainability. Buchanan provides us with the following quote: "In an uncertain environment, working practices that fail to adapt are targets for change. Instability has been regarded not as a condition to be achieved, but as a symptom of inertia, a problem to be solved." In other words, when things get too stable or too comfortable, that's actually a problem. And so the question that I have at the bottom is if our goal is actually to sustain continuous improvement, because if we're not continually improving, or at the very least changing, then we are inert. So this article is ultimately a literature synthesis on how to sustain change once it's implemented. And the key points of the article is first that sustainability is difficult to define, it's ambiguous, and that literature on sustainability can be applied to most large organizations. In this case, the examples in this reading do not apply to education. There's no conceptual framework for sustainability which transcends all others, at least at the time of publishing. And there are 11 common perspectives or factors which the authors identify as a priori. For the philosophers in the room, that means that you can't really make sense of them in a vacuum. So you need sense experience, or you need, empirical evidence to make sense of these terms. And that part was very fun for me, just so y'all know. Okay, moving on. Big picture concepts. Initiative decay occurs pretty much when changes are made and then people within the organization abandon those changes. The concept of freezing happens when, pretty much what it says on the slide. When you unfreeze the current level, you move to a new level, and then you freeze at the new level. And Sasuke is in the bottom of the frame going, because this sounds a lot like the question that I brought up earlier. That is, if you freeze at a new level, then you might repeat the same mistake. The dance of change comes from some of the systems thinking that we did in Rohana's class. And the dance of change is essentially the interplay between growth processes and limiting processes. So, just what is the relationship between growth and limitations? After the 3 big picture concepts are explained in the article, the authors do a very extensive exploration of these 11 perspectives. The first being substantial, which is essentially just asking whether or not the change is worth it. The second is managerial, and the third is leadership. The next perspectives are political, processual, cultural, and contextual. Maybe another way to think about these are like little concepts that can attach to the big concepts. And finally, we have the financial, the organizational, the temporal, and the individual. I just want to remind everyone that y'all are the cream of the crop, and we're all going to finish our dissertation. Here's a mix of what I learned from reading this article and what the authors conclude at the end. First, change is an extremely complex process, and sustaining that change is even more complex. It's very likely that the change will not be sustained, and it is also very likely that further change will be needed after the change has already occurred, and this will require a theory of continuous improvement. I think we've seen that change is difficult, but if we're willing to put in the work, we can make it happen. Thank you, and good night.